Good. Okay. We're going to have a dialogue here, and I have some questions for Gustavo for the dialogue. I don't know much about music at all, but I do know about kind of poetic language. And I think there's a certain musicality to poetic language.
Absolutely.
And so I know for me, in the monastery, then when I left, I was surprised that I found myself being able to speak in that language. I had to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
But there had to be the awakening of a realization that I had this facility which became like a way of life. Mm-hmm. So how about for you with music? Where did music awaken in you that way, where it kind of just carried you along like that?
Well, I started, there's kind of like a feedback thing going on. You can turn it a little bit down, and I will speak a little louder. I started playing the guitar at the age of 5. It was a frustration that my mother had. She wanted to, all her life, to have been able to study guitar, play guitar. She never could. So somehow, I think, she projected that. And me, my grandmother gave me my first guitar. And I started at the age of 5 with a teacher that would come home every Monday. And the technical part of playing the instrument, I kind of developed pretty fast. But the academic side of it, I never really, it was always at odds with that, and with the teacher. So after 5 years, the teacher said, I quit. She told my mother his ear is stronger than my music, and I quit. So that's what, at 10, that's when I started writing my first things. But one of the things that happened to me once I started playing the instrument, and that was when I was 5 or 6, was an immediate connection with the spiritual life, let's say, or my interest in that part. I was raised Catholic, and I wanted, at a very, very early age, I dreamt about becoming a priest. I thought I wanted to be a priest. So the connection with the music and the divine happened at a very, very, very early age. I had my first spiritual crisis at the age of 11. And I have to, unfortunately, have to clear this, that it wasn't because any priest did anything to me. Unfortunately, we have to clear these things because of hundreds of years of, not really nice conduct of some priests. But no, it was really a questioning, just philosophical questioning. And they called my parents, and, it was just, I think, it was nothing that big, but it definitely was a big thing for the guy there that was in charge. And my father, which was a very wise man, said, listen, if you don't feel it, you don't have to do it, and you'll find your spiritual path. You will find it, And then so I quit with the Catholic Church, but my search continues until this day. But there was a big step that I took when I was 17, 18, which was to engage in this project of a commune.
Yeah.
And it was the time of, the hippie years and stuff, and people thought about communes, people that were getting high, or, having, wild sex and stuff. And this was, totally different thing. I led a monastic life practically between 18 to 24 at the height of the success of the band, because the commune also was a band, was a musical group. And we, first of all, we were vegetarians in Argentina at that time, where people will look at you and say, is the kid all right? How can you not eat meat? In Argentina, it's something, now, of course, we have vegetarian restaurants, and at the time there wasn't such a thing. We were vegetarians, we didn't drink alcohol, we fast once a week, we were celibates. I had a girlfriend before, but it was a decision. It was a decision really to work, with that energy and learn to transmute that energy. And we went in to study all the masters including Jesus, of course. But, Ramakrishna and Paramahansa Yogananda and all the Theosophic Society, Madame Blavatsky, Alice Bailey. So it was a very important part of my sort of spiritual path. But obviously, there were things that, again, I didn't feel comfortable about and I didn't agree with. So I went open that group around 24. And then I stayed a couple more years and then I moved to the States. But one thing that also was very important, I think, and marked my decision to leave Argentina was what we were living there, Since I was born, I never really experienced a totally democratic term because there were only two presidents elected democratically, and both were brought down by a military coup. So basically, I grew up with military governments with just two very short democracy tryouts, right? Well, the last one was really awful and ended up with a life of 30,000 people desaparecidos, because they wouldn't even recognize those people. And therefore, everybody in Argentina, or at least lots of people, had or a neighbor or a relative or someone that somehow was touched by this. And I particularly was in jail many times since I was 15 years old, not for more than 3 days, because I didn't do anything. I didn't do drugs. I didn't belong to any political party. I just had long hair and played rock and played an electric guitar. And that was enough reason for me to be put in jail, believe it or not. That's how bad it can get. And so I moved to the States, and my search continued, and I got the chance to see somebody that was kind of forbidden inside of that commune, which was Krishnamurti, because the history of Krishnamurti, it's a beautiful story, as you know. They founded La Orden de la Estrella de Oriente, and they had, because Alice Bailey brought him when he was a kid, but when he was 20, his brother died, and then he went into seclusion, and then at 30 he came back and he said, there's no gurus, you have to find the master inside of you. And I had the chance to see him in Ojai, when the school that still exists today. And it was a great step in that search for me too. La Conciencia Fragmentada, Fragment Consciousness, and all those wonderful books. And then I moved into Buddhism. I got very interested in Buddhism too. And slowly like that, I was once just like that. They knocked on my door and said, we want to take you to India and meet the Dalai Lama. And there I was going to India and meeting with the Dalai Lama. And I continue my search up to today. And I just found, a way to relate to the divine that is very personal, which I think it's like we all of us have in a way, and that gives me great gratification and a great connection that happens also, I believe, in my music too.
Yeah, beautiful.